The Auto City Classic 1970 to 1972 A-Body 2-door coupe, hardtop, and convertible power window kit comes with 2 door regulators, 2 quarter regulators, a 4-way switch, 3 one-way switches, a power wire with circuit breaker, a wire harness, 2 door wire conduits with grommets, and 2 quarter window wiring grommets. No hardware is included. To prepare your vehicle, remove the front and rear seats. Both the backrest and lower seat will need to be removed in the rear. Remove both door panels and both quarter panels. Tape any areas of the car you are worried about scratching. Begin by laying the wire for the install. The wire harness is shaped like an H. Refer to this diagram for installation or the instructions provided for additional information. The wire crossing the car will run just in front of the front seats and be covered by the carpet. On the sides, the wiring will run along the sill plates and hide under the carpet. Install the provided circuit breaker by the driver's kick panel. The red wire will attach to the circuit breaker and then run to a power source, like the positive terminal on the starter. Roll the window down so you can access the window channel nuts. Prior to removing any of the nuts on the window channel, mark their locations with paint or a marker, like this one. Loosen the nuts holding the window channel to the window guide. Raising and lowering the window is needed to access the nuts. Remove the front and rear window stop brackets that are attached to the glass. Notice the marked location of the nut on the window stop bracket. And again here on the window channel guide. At any point you can remove the door panel hanger brackets and rear upper window stop brackets. Complete the removal of the nuts holding the window channel to the window guide. Remove the glass. There are slots in the door to assist clearing the bolts at the bottom of the window. Remove hardware holding the window guide and move it to the back of the door. Take out the 4 bolts holding the regulator and remove the regulator. Be sure to hold the regulator before removing the last bolt so it does not drop against the door skin. Remove the window guide. Holes will need to be drilled for the wire conduit and grommets. Drill a 1 7/8 inch hole in the kick panel area. There is a dimple to locate that hole location. It should be parallel to the middle dimple located on the door. Locate that middle dimple on the door to confirm the hole location for the kick panel. Notice there are 3 dimples in the door located close together. Continue by drilling a 1 1/8 inch hole in the door on the middle dimple for the conduit and grommet. Run the wire up through the kick panel, through the holes you drilled, and into the door. Be careful of the sharp edges. Cut the large grommet provided so that it can be placed over the wires going through the kick panel and into the door, and install it. A screwdriver can be helpful here, but be careful of your paint. Repeat the process for the door, cutting the grommet, placing it over the wires, and installing it into your door. It is now time to install the regulator. Make note of the orientation of the regulator when it is placed inside the door. It does not use the same holes as the factory window regulator. Here, the red circles indicate the factory regulator holes. The green circles identify the holes you will be using to mount the power window regulator. These are factory holes, and no drilling is necessary. Place the regulator inside the door. Using your original hardware, locate one hole and install a bolt. Continue the process for the other 3 bolts holding the regulator in place and tighten them. Move from one to the other, tightening equally as you go. You will need to move the regulator arm for the next steps, so take a moment to plug in the switch and the motor and test the regulator. If it doesn't move, you might have a ground issue. The system grounds between the motor housing and the door. If you do not have a good clean ground between the two, you may need to install a dedicated ground wire, as this installer had to do with both. This can be attributed to a fresh paint job or excess grease on the door hinges. A dedicated ground wire should be attached to the door and then through the grommet and attached to the inside of the car near the kick panel. This is not common, but it might be a step you need to complete. Place the window guide into the door and move the regulator arm as necessary to get the wheel to slide into the track on the guide. Install the bolts and test the guide's movement to make sure it is smooth. You are now ready to place the glass back into the door and into the window guide and put the nuts on, finger tight. Again, moving the regulator as necessary to reach each bolt. Notice the marked locations on the guide here. After locating the glass in the correct location, tighten the nuts and test the window for smooth operation one last time. Reinstall the door panel hangers and window stops. Cut the provided conduit and place it over the wires coming from the kick panel into the doors. Repeat all these steps on the other door. To begin the quarter window install, you will need to drill a couple of new holes for the power window regulators. Locate the dimple inside the body support below the window crank. It is located in the lower hole. Drill a 3/8 inch hole. Next, locate the dimple to the right of the body support about the same height up from the floor as the previous hole. Drill another 3/8 inch hole. These two holes will be your lower power window regulator holes. Drill a 1 1/8 inch hole for the wiring to enter the quarter panel. This hole should be drilled in the bottom corner of the quarter panel area, just ahead of the wheel well. As with the front door, it is a great idea to mark all of your bolt locations to aid in lining up parts during the reinstall, and to limit the amount of time needed to adjust. Lower the window to its lowest setting. Remove the lower window stop and the lower slide mounting and adjusting bracket. There is a bolt on the outside and one inside. Loosen the 4 regulator bolts. Remove both upper window stops. Remove the upper slide mounting bracket. Finish removing the regulator bolts. At this point, your glass will be free to come out. If you failed to crank the window down to its lowest setting prior to disassembly, it is best to have an assistant hold the glass in place as you remove these bolts. Failure to do so could result in injury or damage. Remove the regulator and lift the window up. You may wish to remove the window completely at this point by lifting it and tilting it inward towards the car and lifting it out of the slot. Otherwise, you can lift the window and pull it forward and wedge it in place as this installer has done, and then remove the slide. You are now ready to begin reassembly with your new power window regulator. Notice the approximate orientation of the new regulator when it is installed. It will make your install easier if you plug in the regulator and rotate the arm between 90 and 120 degrees prior to installing it into the quarter panel. Here, the red circles indicate the old factory regulator holes. The green are factory holes that were not used, and the yellow are holes you drilled at the beginning of the quarter window install. You will be using the green and yellow holes for the power window regulator. Place the slide inside the quarter panel, followed by the power regulator. Locate the holes and install the bolts to hold the regulator in place. As with the front, you will reuse all of your original hardware. You may need to shim the bolts on the quarter regulator so that they will be clear of the arm behind the panel. For this install, new hardware had to be purchased and 2 extra washers needed to be placed on each bolt so they would not interfere with the regulator arm movement. If you remove the glass from the car, you will want to place that back inside the quarter panel at this point. Move the slide back into place under the quarter window glass and insert the roller into the slide track. Install the upper slide mounting and adjusting bracket using the marks you made before disassembly to align things as they were before, and just snug the bolts into place for now. Run the wire through the body support and into the hole you made for it to go inside the quarter panel, and plug in the motor. If you rotated the regulator arm to 90 to 120 degrees prior to installing, plugging in the motor is easy. If not, it might be more difficult for you. This installer did not rotate the arm, as you can see, and had to work very hard to get the motor plugged in. After it was plugged in and the arm could be rotated, he was able to ensure the motor was plugged in snugly. Install the lower slide mounting and adjusting bracket. Now you are ready to tighten the upper and lower adjusting plates using the marks you made prior to disassembly. At this point, you can test the window for smooth movement. Install all 3 of the window stops, again using the marks you made prior to disassembly as a guide. You will likely need to readjust these from where they were before, but this will be a good starting point. Run the window up and down, checking the movement and location where the window stops. If necessary, adjust and test again. Test until you are satisfied. At this point, you will cut the supplied wire grommet in half, place it over the wires going into the quarter panel, and install the grommet into the hole as you did on the door install. Repeat the install process on the other side of the car. You are now ready to finish your install by installing your power window switches. Starting with the driver's side, locate the hole where the original window crank was located. You will cut a 3 3/4 by 1 1/8 inch hole located in the same spot directly on center with the original hole. Install the retainer clip into the hole. It may be necessary to widen the hole a little to insert the clip. Bend the retainer clip tabs outward to hold the retainer in place. Reinstall the door panel on the car with the 4-way plug coming through the hole. Plug in the switch and press the switch into the retainer clip. Moving on to the passenger door. Repeat the process exactly as you did for the driver door, with the exception of cutting a 1 1/2 by 1 1/8 inch hole on center with the original window crank hole. Both rear quarter panels are the same process as the passenger side door. Each panel will have a 1 1/2 by 1 1/8 inch hole cut directly on center with the original window crank hole.